Beach Market. Yaël Ossowski with the Consumer Choice Center, the global grassroots movement for consumer choice, is with us all the way in Vienna, Austria here this morning. Yaël, it's a pleasure. It's been far too long, my friend. And how goes it in your neck of the woods?
Well, Joe, good to talk to you. I guess you're right there in the eye of the storm. Pretty crazy that happens. But yeah, things overall going pretty well here. A lot of news breaking as of late. Really talking about this city and this area, but I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. We get come across the news, and I heard it during the top of the hour Fox News break just a little while ago. Are you getting refunded for your Eras Tour tickets that were canceled in terms of Taylor Swift and her shows in Vienna getting canceled this week after a suspected terror threat was thwarted by law enforcement officials in Vienna?
Well, Joe, I won't be getting any refund because I couldn't afford the ticket in the first place. It was easily about 1K per ticket. So I actually calculated it. If we look at the 190,000 tickets that were sold, I mean, we're talking something like $40 million will have to be reversed back to people who had tickets. I definitely had friends who were supposed to be there, but yeah, looks like that ain't happening.
So two suspected extremists, one of whom appeared to be planning an attack, and I know the area decently because of conversations with you over the years. Forever a sort of neutral way of looking at the issues around the world and in your region, of the globe as well, across Europe. But having said that, doesn't mean that bad things stray away from the neutral territories of our global kind of way of looking at things. And it appears that this 19-year-old, quickly we find out that he was on the internet and became radicalized based on all of the access he has to the bad stuff that we see on the computer every day.
Yeah, there's some kind of Islamic State, ISIS kind of connection here. There are the two people who they picked up and were arrested. One of them was just south of Vienna, and one was right here in the city. And it turns out that the one that was in the city actually had gotten a job at the tour management company and was, the assumption is, supposed to be working security during the concert. So not sure what's happening there. We do know that the tip came from a foreign intelligence service. So it was not the Austrian sort of CIA or FBI or anything like this. It was some foreign one. We don't know if it was the Americans or Brits or Germans. But either way, this is a huge thing for Vienna to have Taylor Swift coming here. We don't get too many huge musical acts, and surely not one that can sell out the biggest arena in the country for 3 days straight. So definitely shocked a lot of people, but we're not strangers to radical Islamic terrorism. Joe, we talked not long ago about some of the stuff that was happening here right after the lockdowns. There was a guy who opened up his gun on people downtown right before the lockdowns and killed a bunch of people near the opera. And we've had many similar circumstances to this. So it's, there's a lot of radical Islamic terrorism that is discussed in the news, but some of us who are living in parts of Europe, we kind of have to experience it every couple of years. So it's definitely a huge concern.
And when we've talked in years past and right after COVID and during COVID, in fact, I vividly remember, speaking of lockdowns, that within your apartment, a bunch of Karens were actually, because you still try and bring your American culture every now and then, to that portion of Europe based on, whether it be food, beverage, or, other elements of life experiences here. And apparently it was a couple of Karens, right, if I remember correctly, in your apartment complex who called the cops on you because you were smoking meat in the middle of the, common area within your apartment complex.
Oh, yeah, I was trying out my wonderful, Eastern Carolina vinegar-based barbecue recipe. I had, something ready for Thanksgiving and too much smoke for the locals. It wasn't a Karen, but I guess a Karina, if we have to use a German name. And police came, checked on it. They checked my fire, my offset smoker, determined that what I was doing was actually awesome and very cool, and they went on their merry way. But Yeah, we do deal with our own version of Karens, even abroad.
And obviously, you've got a little bit of a connection, north of the border. As a native Canadian American citizen, your family out in the Charlotte area, connected within the NASCAR circuit. What is it? Your brother is or was at least a member of the pit crew for Chase Elliott, if memory serves me correctly.
Well, now it's William Byron, so that they've actually been doing really well, ranking up the wins, getting championships. They've really been doing a great job, and NASCAR has been doing some really interesting stuff in terms of street courses and all kinds of new races. And yeah, it's always good to follow good Carolina sports. We don't often get that.
And in just kind of a brief synopsis of what you do at the Consumer Choice Center to our listeners out there who haven't heard you just yet. And I know, as you spill into North Carolina, we've got a number of folks who are tuned in from Brunswick County, so maybe a little bit more familiarity than elsewhere around the Myrtle Beach market. But just give us the lowdown on what you do day to day in terms of the Consumer Choice Center.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of young people who really are fascinated by technology. They like using technology, and they like cool, innovative stuff. And they haven't really had an avenue whereby they can advocate for that when it comes to policy and it comes to governmental regulations. And there are a lot of things that are imposed at the local level, at the state level, federal level, you name it, where your freedom to choose is being restricted all the times. Now, whether that be your favorite Zyn pouches or the ability to take an Uber, book an Airbnb, there's all kinds of different products and services that the market has delivered that are very new. Some politicians are very scared of this and, have put in restrictions, try to raise taxes on certain things. So myself and a couple of my buddies got together, founded an organization. We've been doing this for about 7 years, trying to defend the consumer's right to choose. I'll give you another local example, Joe. There's an app called Swimply. Some of your listeners might know that. It's just if you have a private pool at your house or let's say in your community and you guys want to rent it out to private parties to make a couple of bucks, there's an app called Swimply that people are able to book and figure out, where can we find a pool? And there are regulators in North Carolina and different states that have tried to make it so that private pools, if they do this, will be regulated as public pools, and therefore you need to have the health inspectors come down. They have to measure the pH. You got to have lifeguards on duty. So there's all kinds of these innovations that are happening every day, coming up in the market, providing solutions. And so often we don't have people who can defend that adequately in the face of government regulators, either at the local level, state level, you name it. So there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of stuff is in media. A lot of stuff is trying to discuss how this impacts people, but also speaking with lawmakers, state lawmakers, trying to push model policy and generally make life better for everyone. And I think that's our ultimate goal. We've been going strong for about 7 years now, expanding to different countries, different states, and doing a bunch of stuff in different languages too. So the fight for consumer choice is important, and we keep on trucking on.
And, with that said, I haven't ventured to the Swimply app yet, but last month, my sister, for her birthday, my brother-in-law, found an app while we were just hanging out because we wanted to get out on the water for a couple of hours. GetMyBoat.com is a website where essentially you can rent a boat, a yacht, whatever it might be, from a pontoon to a jet ski, to a massive yacht, if you would like, per hour or plan ahead of time. And you have your own captain, and a little bit different than maybe, say, the Freedom Boat Club, which you operate yourself. This comes with a captain to navigate, and I wouldn't be surprised, as you kind of said, folks catch wind of this, and next thing they want to know, is the insurance liability up to date, and all the different things that they can put on essentially an entrepreneur to utilize, an investment, a private investment, and try and tax it, regulate it, or whatever it might be. We really enjoyed the experience, and don't doubt we'll do it again, particularly when folks like you vacation in our area, to give you an experience that you might not get anywhere else. And it would not be surprised me if this is the next maybe application that is targeted within the thralls of government regulation.
Yeah, and I love me, Myrtle Beach boomers. I love you guys. You guys are the best. You've provided a great area with plenty of growth. You've been able to build great homes, great amusement parks, beachfronts, all the rest. And if you guys happen to have some assets on the side and you want to lend them out to those of us who like to use these apps, it's a perfect opportunity. And that's kind of what we're trying to push for, is just the ability that you as a consumer can make your life better. And we have all kinds of innovations, all kinds of cool things coming out of the market, all kinds of new products and services. We're not even talking about AI. We're just talking about things in your neighborhood and in your community, Instacart, shopping. These are great things. Unfortunately, there are some restrictions that are being passed a lot of times by competitors and people who don't want to see new industries thrive. And that's one thing that we want to try to encourage, is more competition. And I think that overall benefits consumers, citizens, tourists, and even residents right there in Myrtle Beach.
That bothers me the most, right? Because most of the elected officials will quickly jump on the free market train, but then when there is competition and maybe they have an investment, say, in a potential competitor, they work quickly, maybe behind the scenes or maybe right there out in front of you, on the news day to day, to try and stymie any innovation or entrepreneurship because it might hurt their bottom line.
Yeah, and there's a lot of regulators, as we mentioned, but just competing industries. We talked about like Uber and ride shares and in the insurance. I mean, there's a whole cadre of attorneys that are very willing to, try to get a case together in case you're in an Uber and there's an accident and they sue the insurance. And then you just have insurance companies and lawyers, and they're just pumping up the price of everything. We have inflation that we're living through right now, but there's a lot of inflation that also comes from things being relegated to the legal system, courts, lawyers. I think that's why a lot of these apps have started to shut down or restrict too, is nobody wants to get sued. We're very, very big on suing people in the U.S. It's kind of our favorite pastime apart from baseball, but there are small measures that we're trying to change, both state level and national, and I think there will be some great reform to come. But yeah, it just goes to show it's not just political players, it's also other companies, other industries. People do want to make your life more expensive as a consumer, and that's something we got to fight against.
Well, I know you would love this story, and you could look it up after we end our call here this morning. In our beautiful family beach of Surfside Beach, we've talked about an effort, and I know that you're a proponent, obviously, of free market solutions, maybe alternatives as it pertains to smoking and this evolution of the vape and other alternatives outside of a traditional cigarette or whatever it might be. That there is an effort within the city of Surfside Beach, the town of Surfside Beach, to relegate CBD and smoke vape shops essentially to off the main thoroughfare because it doesn't necessarily, in their eyes, give it a good look in terms of the aesthetics as a family beach to have a CBD and vape store on the main drag. So there's been an effort and conversation to try and push them off the block, so to speak, and onto a secondary road.
Yeah, there's a lot of zoning stuff that is debated a lot in local communities. And, we've talked about density before, Joe, and the ability to, build up bigger apartments, especially if you've got a growing population versus single family housing and zoning. So there's a lot of questions that can be done there. I think zoning overall is a good thing that communities can have. We just don't want it to be too restrictive. There's when it comes to CBD and things like this, I agree. It's very much a gray market, gray area. We've got a little bit of decriminalization from sort of the FDA and everything that's happening with the EPA, but we don't really know what the rules are. So I will say, in defense of some of those local zoning changes, it's just not really clear what the status quo should be. Obviously, people in communities can have votes and try to figure it out, but they have to balance that with the interest of consumers who might want to go to those shops. And maybe there are better areas, or maybe if nobody goes, the business fails, and that's just how it goes. People have to be able to take risks and lose. And I think that's what the American society does better than any other place, but it also means that we are able to breed and create the biggest winners out there, specifically for the economy.
Yaël Ossowski with the Consumer Choice Center with us here this morning. Yaël, before I let you go, where can people find out more about what you do and why you do it?
We're over there on consumerchoicecenter.org, but we're also active on all of your social media platforms. So instead of angry messages, just give us a nice little like or retweet or punch, a share, everything. We're there.
Yaël, thanks so much, my friend, and we'll catch up again soon. Stay safe out there.